The first thing I remember is the clinking of glasses, hundreds of them, catching the chandelier's light like tiny blades. I was standing at the edge of the stage, smiling, pretending the night was mine too. Ryan's promotion gala was supposed to be the crowning moment of our marriage. Years of sacrifice turned into applause. His colleagues filled the ballroom, women in sleek gowns, men in tailored suits, the kind of crowd that fed on polished surfaces and whispered gossip. Ryan stood under the spotlight with that smug grin he always wore when cameras pointed at him. I knew the grin by heart. It was my husband's armor. He was thanking the board, the CEO, his so-called mentors. My palms stung from clapping so hard, but inside I waited for one simple thing: his eyes to find me, his words to acknowledge me, to admit I had carried half of this climb on my shoulders. Instead, the mic was passed. A woman in a red silk dress rose from the center table. She was too confident, too familiar. The room shifted, curious. She swirled her champagne like she owned it. "A toast," she purred, her voice sliding through the air. My chest tightened. I knew her. Not from friends, not from dinners, but from fragments. A name Ryan dropped casually. A photo buried deep in his phone. The new project manager. "Ryan," she began, eyes fixed on him with a look that burned. "You are the most brilliant, driven man I've ever known. You've taught me more than anyone. Late nights, endless revisions, your patience with me." She smirked. "Our private brainstorming sessions, unforgettable." The room broke into scattered laughs, some nervous, some knowing. My throat closed. The air turned electric, everyone catching the undertone. The mistress wasn't subtle. She was staking her claim in front of 200 people. Ryan shifted, chuckling too quickly, trying to play it off. All right, thank you." But she didn't stop. She raised her glass higher. "Here's to the man who makes every night feel like morning. To the man who doesn't just lead in the office, but knows how to make a woman feel seen." Gasps cracked through the ballroom. A woman at the next table covered her mouth. I felt the floor tilt under me. I should have crumbled. I should have bolted. Instead, something inside me hardened. I stepped forward. My heels clicked against the marble, echoing. Conversations died. Heads turned. The spotlight shifted unintentionally, catching me as I reached the stage. I lifted my own glass. My hand didn't shake. "A toast," I said, my voice carrying sharper than I thought possible. Ryan froze. His mistress froze. The room went dead silent. "I want to thank my husband," I said, letting my eyes lock on his, "for showing me the truth tonight. For showing me, in front of all of you, exactly what kind of man he is." The tension snapped like a whip. I could hear whispers spilling in waves. Ryan hissed under his breath. "Samantha, don't—" I didn't give him the chance. I raised my glass higher. Here's to the liar who built his career on my inheritance, my sacrifices, and my silence. Here's to the man who couldn't keep his vows intact for even 5 years. The glass left my hand before I could second guess. Champagne splashed across his pressed suit, dripping down his tie. Gasps burst into shocked laughter, the kind of laughter people couldn't hold back even if they tried. Ryan's face burned red, his mouth opening and closing like a trapped fish. "And me?" I smiled, a smile sharp enough to cut. "Enjoy your promotion, Ryan," I said, turning to the mistress, who now sat stiff and pale. "I hear private brainstorming sessions pay really well." The whole room erupted. Some laughed nervously, others clapped. A few women at the back actually cheered. Cameras flashed. Phones recorded. Ryan tried to reach for me, his voice cracking. "Sam, wait." I stepped back, heels firm, shaking off his hand. "Don't touch me." My words sliced the space between us. I turned, my gown sweeping behind me like a curtain closing on a play. My chest pounded, but my stride didn't falter. I passed the staring faces, some pitying, some thrilled by the drama. The double doors opened, heavy and slow, and when they shut behind me, the sound was final, like a gavel. Out in the cool night air, I exhaled. My body trembled, but not from weakness. From rage so clean it felt like clarity. He had embarrassed me in front of the world. He had allowed his mistress to humiliate me on a night I built for him, but he didn't know me. He didn't know what I carried. I wiped the champagne droplets from my hand, lifted my chin, and whispered to myself, "You just started a war, Ryan, and I don't lose." Then I walked into the dark, not broken, not beaten, but vowing revenge. When I married Ryan, I thought I was marrying a partner. We were 24, broke but ambitious, 2 kids in a cramped apartment with more dreams than furniture. He swore he'd build a future for us if I believed in him, and I did. I believed so much that I put my own career on hold, shelving my plans for a master's degree so he could get his MBA. The tuition wasn't cheap, but I had a cushion, the inheritance my mother left me when she passed. Money meant to give me security became the seed money for his ambitions. Back then, I told myself it was love. That's what love meant: sacrificing, investing, betting on us. When he walked across that stage with his diploma, he looked at me in the crowd, grinning like the world belonged to us. I clapped until my hands hurt, ignoring the voice inside whispering, "He owes you everything now." We bought our house with that same inheritance. A modest 2-story in a suburban cul-de-sac, white siding, blue shutters. My name was on the deed, but Ryan strutted through it like it was his empire. I painted the nursery when I was 6 months pregnant with our daughter Emma. I remember crouching on the floor, belly heavy, brushing soft yellow across the walls while Ryan networked at late-night dinners. Emma became my anchor. When Ryan worked long hours, I was the one pacing the floors with a colicky baby at 3 a.m. When he traveled for conferences, I was the one juggling bills, daycare, and a screaming toddler who wanted her dad. Still, I told myself it was temporary, that all of this was leading to stability, to the life we had promised each other. But cracks showed early. Ryan guarded his phone like it held state secrets. He came home smelling of cologne that wasn't his. He claimed the gym was why he shaved his chest hair suddenly, why he stayed out late, blowing off steam. I noticed, but I swallowed it, telling myself I was paranoid, that every marriage had rough patches. The truth never hits you all at once. It seeps in like water through a crack in the ceiling, staining everything slowly until you can't unsee it. One afternoon, Emma was coloring at the kitchen table while I chopped vegetables for dinner. She looked up innocently and said, "Mommy, Daddy had ice cream with the pretty lady from his office today." She didn't mean to wound me. She said it the way children do, blurting out truth without understanding the weight. My knife froze midair. "What lady?" I asked, my voice steady though my chest roared. "The one with shiny red shoes?" They were laughing. She gave me a balloon. That was the first confirmation that I wasn't paranoid, that he wasn't just working late. He was building another life, testing how invisible he could make me. And then came the screenshots. A friend of mine, a woman from the neighborhood whose husband worked in Ryan's company, sent them late at night. Texts between Ryan and her coworker, words too familiar, too dirty, too full of private jokes to explain away. I stared at my phone until my vision blurred. My hands shook, but my gut was calm, icy. It wasn't just betrayal, it was proof. Proof that the sacrifices, the years, the inheritance, the child we brought into this world, none of it was enough to keep him loyal. By the time I walked into that gala, some part of me already knew. But standing there, hearing her toast, watching the smirk on his face as he let her humiliate me publicly, that was the moment it crystallized. This wasn't just my husband failing me. This was my husband stealing from me, my money, my years, my dignity, and handing it all to someone else. And now? He had no idea what I was about to take back. The morning after the gala, I woke up in the guest room at my friend Lauren's house with makeup still caked on my face and my phone buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from Ryan, texts alternating between panic and anger. "We need to talk." "Don't overreact. You embarrassed yourself last night." The audacity made me laugh, a low, bitter sound that startled even me. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. I sat up, pulled my laptop onto my knees, and began making lists. Not emotional ones, not what went wrong or why me. Real lists. Lawyers, banks, locks, daycare schedules. If Ryan wanted to play games in public, I was about to show him how quietly ruthless I could be. The first call I made was to a divorce attorney. A woman recommended by one of Lauren's co-workers, known for being merciless and efficient. She picked up within 2 rings, her tone calm but firm. I told her everything. She didn't flinch. She gave me instructions. Gather financial documents, freeze joint accounts before he drained them, secure proof of infidelity. We'll use his arrogance against him, she said. Those words tasted like oxygen. Next, I logged into our joint bank account. His credit cards were attached to it, and he was careless with spending. Luxury dinners, hotel charges disguised as business expenses, all right there. My hands didn't shake as I transferred most of the funds into a separate account in my name only. Money I had earned, money that was mine from the beginning. The screen flashed confirmation. Transfer complete. It felt like armor clicking into place. Then came the house. My house. I called the locksmith and scheduled a change of locks for that evening. If Ryan thought he could stroll back into the blue-shuttered suburban dream we built on my inheritance, he had another thing coming. I moved like a woman possessed, packing boxes with Emma's essentials at Lauren's while she played with her daughter in the living room. Toothbrush, pajamas, her favorite stuffed rabbit. Everything else could wait. I wasn't dragging chaos into my child's life. I was going to build us stability on my terms. Ryan's messages grew nastier as the day stretched. You can't do this. We need to be a team. Stop acting crazy. Crazy. That word always made my blood boil. It was the word men used when women stopped being convenient. By evening, I drove back to the house with Lauren beside me. The locksmith was finishing up as we pulled in. The look on Ryan's face when he arrived minutes later is burned into my memory. Confusion melting into disbelief, then rage. "What the hell is this?" he shouted from the driveway. His tie loosened, his eyes bloodshot. "Security," I answered flatly, stepping out of the car. He stormed up the path, trying to push past me, but the locksmith blocked him. "New locks," the man said simply. "Authorized by the homeowner." "I'm the homeowner," Ryan barked. "No," I said, holding up the deed folder. "You're a guest, one who just overstayed his welcome." The veins in his neck pulsed. He looked at me like I'd ripped the ground from under his feet. And in a way, I had. For years, he'd counted on me being soft, forgiving, pliable. That woman was gone. "Sam, don't do this," he said, lowering his voice, trying to pivot back to charm. "Think about Emma. Think about what this looks like." I stepped closer, close enough that he couldn't mistake my tone for weakness. "I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about the kind of man she sees as a role model, and I'd rather raise her alone than let her grow up believing lies are normal." His jaw clenched. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in years, Ryan was speechless. I shut the folder, turned my back, and walked inside. Behind me, he cursed, kicked the step, and called my name like it still held power. But his voice sounded small now, muffled by the closing door. That night, I sat in the living room with Lauren, sipping tea while Emma slept upstairs. My body was drained, but my mind was sharp. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a strategist. Every move from here forward would be deliberate, calculated, merciless. Ryan thought the Gala was the peak of his career, the night he had it all. What he didn't realize was that it was also the night he lost everything, and I was going to make sure he never got it back. The morning after I changed the locks felt like the first clear day after a storm. Cold, bright, everything visible. Word travels faster than loyalty in small, polished worlds. By 9, my phone buzzed with texts from people I barely knew. Links to clips of the Gala, screenshots of last night's toast, comments that ranged from sympathetic to gleeful. The video was already looping on someone's feed. Me, glass raised, champagne splashing across Ryan's suit like the punctuation mark to a sentence nobody wanted to finish. At noon, the first ripple hit Ryan where he thought he was untouchable: his calendar. His executive assistant called the office in a panic. A board member had emailed about errant charges on the corporate card flagged by accounting. The CFO wanted an immediate reconciliation. I didn't need to be the one to tell them. I'd frozen the joint accounts and moved funds that should have been untouchable in Ryan's careless bookkeeping. I let the bank and my lawyer do their jobs quietly. Public ruination tastes better when it's inevitable and clean. By mid-afternoon, I started hearing things through mutual friends and old neighbors. The mistress, Maya, received a terse message from HR asking her to come in for a routine conversation. Her name was suddenly a liability. People who used to smile at her in the elevator avoided eye contact. The woman who'd laughed loudest at the gala now found herself on the defensive in meetings. Her ideas met with clipped nods instead of applause. You don't get to rewrite a scandal without collateral. I watched, detached and surgical, as the scaffolding around Ryan's secret life creaked. At Ryan's office, whispers mutated into inquiries. Clients texted me, odd, awkward messages of concern about leadership stability. An investor's partner sent a bland note asking if everything at home was in order. That's how these worlds work. Personal cracks become professional fissures the moment discretion fails. He had always counted on appearances. I made sure appearance became evidence. Then came the texts from people I thought would take his side. My sister-in-law, who'd long admired him, wrote to say she was saddened and hoped we could work things out. Another friend sent a private message. If you need anything, call me. It was a string of half-supports, the kind that cost nothing and meant less. A couple I'd invited to brunch last month stopped returning my messages altogether. On the other side of the city, Maya's social media went quiet. Her followers plateaued, then dipped. Her LinkedIn, which once sang with endorsements, now bore the hollow silence that only corporate caution can manufacture. HR's routine conversation apparently turned into a suspension pending an internal review. She tried to call Ryan, once, twice, but his phone was a litany of missed calls and ignored voicemails. Pride dissolves quickly when your power base evaporates. At home, the ripple looked different. Emma's teacher pulled me aside at pickup, eyes soft. "She's been asking about Daddy," she said carefully. "Is everything okay?" I nodded, because I had already decided what safety looked like for my child. Predictability, shelter from spectacle, explanations measured to her age. Emma needed boundaries, not the messy adult reruns that had shredded our last few years. I promised the teacher I was handling it. That afternoon, Ryan escalated from texts to theatrics. He showed up at my front door, literally. Not the shouting on the driveway from the night I changed the locks, but this time he came with an entourage, a lawyer I didn't recognize, and a camera phone held like a talisman. He banged on the door until Lauren answered, furious and exhausted. He wanted to come in. He wanted to see Emma. He wanted to talk. He wanted to fix whatever he thought a few apologies could patch up. Lauren stood between them, arms crossed, eyes cold. "She's not here," Lauren said. "And you need to leave." Ryan tried to push past, voice rising into pleading. Passers-by slowed. Someone recorded, the circle tightening. The humiliation he feared had become public again, and this time there were witnesses outside the ballroom's glow. He pleaded for me to answer. He called me every name save the one I wanted him to use. Please. Instead, he insisted the narrative he'd fed himself for years, that he was the wronged husband, that I'd overreacted, still had legs. He had no clue how fast things were falling apart for him. He had no idea that overreacting was the phrase abusers used to silence the auction of their conscience. When the locksmith came down to tell him the locks had been changed legally and the banker's letter arrived confirming the temporary freeze on certain accounts, his face shifted from fury to naked panic. He kept glancing at the camera phone, desperate that someone would record a version of him that wanted sympathy. The world outside Lauren's door provided none. He reached for his phone, dialing my number again and again. My phone buzzed in my bag upstairs. I watched the screen light up through my bedroom door while Emma slept, small and unaware of the tectonic plates shifting under her life. I didn't answer. I let it ring out. I stayed quiet, because quiet had become my weapon, strategic, immovable. When his last voicemail landed, breathless and frantic, saying, "Sam, you can't do this. Please." For Emma, I felt something like pity, but it was quick and useless. This was the first consequence, the beginning of the unraveling. He stomped his feet in the driveway and then retreated, for now. But he had tasted panic, and panic does strange things to men who've always been allowed to pretend they're immune. He would be back, angrier, more dangerous, more careless. Outside, a neighbor whispered to another, "Did you see?" And the world kept spinning, taking his dignity with it. Inside, I sat close to the phone, the silence a humming promise. I had started the first domino. The rest would fall. Ryan's first desperate outburst at the door had been pathetic, but predictable. I knew it wouldn't be the last. Men like him don't fold quickly, they flail. He spent the next week trying to control the story, calling mutual friends, hinting that I'd had some emotional breakdown, that the gala scene was me acting out of stress. His voice always sounded calm in public, calculated, like he could still polish the surface if he scrubbed hard enough. But I wasn't about to let him repaint reality. The opportunity came faster than I expected. His sister's birthday dinner. An upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the waiters glide instead of walk, and every wine bottle costs more than a week's groceries. He was bold enough to show up with Maya clinging to his arm, pretending nothing had cracked. Family, friends, colleagues from the firm. Half the city's gossip mill squeezed into that dining room. I hadn't planned on going, but when his sister texted me, "I want you there, please. He doesn't get to erase you from family," I decided it was time. Public humiliation had started this story. It would damn well continue in public. I walked in 10 minutes late, deliberate. Every head turned. Conversations stuttered. Ryan's jaw went slack. Maya stiffened, her smile freezing like a mask. I slid into the empty chair across from them, set my purse on the table, and lifted the menu like I had every right to be there, because I did. The first 20 minutes were stiff, suffocating. Waiters poured wine. Small talk scattered like broken glass. Ryan tried to dominate the air, laughing too loudly, squeezing Maya's hand like a man staking a claim. I let him perform, let the act stretch thin. Then, when the entrees arrived, I put my fork down and took out my phone. "Since we're celebrating honesty tonight," I said, voice cutting clean through the clatter of silverware, "I thought I'd share something." I tapped the screen and set it on the table. A PDF filled the display, the bank statements. Rows of hotel charges, dinners, jewelry, all dated while I was pregnant, while Emma was teething, while Ryan was supposedly working late. Gasps punctured the air. His sister leaned forward, squinting, hand covering her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Ryan lunged across the table, snatching the phone, his face purple. This is private." "No," I said, louder, steady. "This is public. Because you made it public the night your mistress toasted you in front of 200 people. I tilted my head toward Maya, whose face had drained of color. "You wanted an audience? You've got one." He stammered, trying to piece together denials, but I didn't let him. I pulled a second paper from my purse, a printout of his texts. Screenshots. Filthy, smug exchanges that left no room for interpretation. I slid them across the table like poker cards. "That's not stress, Ryan. That's betrayal." With receipts. The room erupted in whispers, chairs scraping as people craned to see. Maya shoved her chair back, cheeks blazing, muttering, "I didn't sign up for this." She grabbed her purse, ignored Ryan's hissed protests, and bolted toward the door. Half the restaurant watched her go. Ryan's control shattered. "You vindictive..." I cut him off with a laugh. Cold, sharp, final. Vindictive? No, just finished being silent. I rose, letting the chair scrape dramatically against the polished floor. My hands didn't shake, they spread open, palms flat on the linen tablecloth as I leaned toward him. You thought I'd stay quiet, that I'd keep paying the bills, keep raising our daughter, keep smiling while you paraded her around. You forgot something, Ryan. Silence is complicity, and I don't play accomplice to my own humiliation. I straightened, pulled my glass of water, and lifted it high enough for the nearest tables to see. Here's my toast. To the man who lost everything the moment he underestimated his wife. People actually clapped. Not all of them, but enough. Waiters paused, guests craned, and Ryan sat there drenched in the wreckage, his reputation cracking like glass under a hammer. I left him there, alone at a table surrounded by whispers and pitying stares. His sister caught my arm at the door, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, I said. He's the one who owes everyone an apology. When I stepped outside, the night air was cool, biting. My phone buzzed again before I'd even reached the curb. Texts from friends, strangers, even colleagues of his, forwarding the clips already circulating. My line was out there, the toast replayed, captions added. The man who lost everything the moment he underestimated his wife. For once, I didn't dread the whispers. I welcomed them, because every whisper was a nail in the coffin of Ryan's carefully crafted image. And every clap in that restaurant was proof that the narrative was no longer his to control. The night of his sister's dinner, my words had been a spark. By the next morning, they were wildfire. Clips of me raising my glass spread across feeds like confetti in a storm. The man who lost everything the moment he underestimated his wife became a caption, a quote on Twitter, a meme plastered over stock photos of ruined castles. By noon, the phrase was a trending hashtag. At first, Ryan tried to ignore it. He posted a stiff photo of himself in a tailored suit with a caption about rising above negativity and focusing on his career. It backfired instantly. Comments poured in, tearing him apart. Maybe rise above your mistress instead? Career built on wife's money, apparently. Screenshots of his spending habits, the very ones I had laid on the table, started circulating in threads. People tagged the company, the board, even clients. Silence from his end wasn't enough. The world smelled blood. 2 days later, he went on offense. A glossy interview in a local business magazine appeared online, his photo airbrushed, his smile strained. The headline screamed, "Executive denies allegations. This is a personal attack." In the article, he painted himself as the victim of a bitter, unstable spouse, claiming I had misunderstood his relationship with a coworker, that my outburst at the gala had caused undue embarrassment to his colleagues. He even dared to say he hoped I would seek help. Reading it made me laugh so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. That was his strategy? Paint me as hysterical? In 2025, when receipts were the only currency that mattered, I didn't have to lift a finger for the internet to dismantle him. Women flooded the comments with their own stories of being gaslit. Men called him tone-deaf. Someone dug up old LinkedIn posts where he bragged about having it all, the devoted wife, the perfect daughter, the promotion, and paired them with screenshots of his texts to Maya. The side-by-side images went viral under the hashtag Yash Receipt Season. Then came the leak I hadn't even orchestrated. Maya herself, burned by HR and iced out socially, vented in a private group chat that wasn't so private. Screenshots surfaced, her bragging about the gala toast, mocking me as clueless, admitting she thought Ryan would leave me sooner. Within hours, her words were everywhere. The comments turned vicious. She shut down her social media, but the damage was permanent. Ryan tried another tactic, a late-night live stream. He sat in his car, voice low, eyes bleary, begging people to understand the stress he was under. He rambled about toxic marriage dynamics, about being set up to fail, about betrayal cutting both ways. He thought the rawness would make him look human. It didn't. It made him look pathetic. Clips circulated with captions like "cheater crying in his Honda" and "stress on Mistress." My lawyer called me the next morning, voice bright. He just destroyed himself. No judge alive is going to see him as stable now. The media frenzy kept building. Influencers picked it up, using my line as motivational soundbites. Women on TikTok clinked glasses to the camera, repeating, "To the man who lost everything the moment he underestimated his wife." It became anthem-like, a rallying cry for betrayal survivors. Even late-night hosts slipped jokes into their monologues, Ryan's name mentioned alongside punchlines about promotion perks. Through it all, I stayed silent. Not one interview, not one comment. My restraint only sharpened the contrast. While he flailed, I appeared composed, measured, dignified. Friends texted, "You're winning without even trying." I wasn't trying, I was strategizing. Every time Ryan opened his mouth, he tightened the noose. The final blow came from his own company. A statement leaked. The board was reviewing concerns related to recent personal conduct and financial discretion. Translation, they didn't want his scandal staining their brand. Ryan's crown jewel promotion, the thing he thought would cement his legacy, was suddenly under review. I imagined him pacing his condo, watching his empire collapse tweet by tweet, meme by meme. He must have thought silence was safety. That image was armor. But in this new world, once the truth cracked, there was no repairing it. The narrative wasn't his anymore. It was public property, and the public had chosen their side. For the first time in years, I felt something like justice humming in the background of my life. Not peace yet. Peace would come later. But justice. And justice was only getting started. By the time the legal proceedings began, Ryan's reputation was already in tatters. But reputations were abstract. What mattered now was money, custody, and consequences carved into black and white legal documents. My attorney thrived on precision. She came to our first hearing with binders so thick the bailiff raised his eyebrows. Every charge, every screenshot, every receipt, cataloged and color-coded. Ryan arrived with a new lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd been promised easy money. The poor bastard had no idea what he was walking into. Ryan strutted into court like the peacock he still believed himself to be. But the minute the judge started reviewing the evidence, that confidence drained. The hotel bills during my pregnancy, the jewelry charges while Emma was sick with pneumonia, the Gala clip playing on loop for the court record. By the time the judge asked about misappropriated funds, Ryan's shoulders sagged. Financially, the dismantling was brutal. The inheritance money I had funneled into our house and his MBA came back into focus. My lawyer argued, and the court agreed, that my contributions gave me rightful majority control of the house and its equity. Ryan had to vacate. He sputtered, furious, but the ruling was clear. Next came accounts. Every joint asset froze under the court's order until final division. My separate account remained mine. His flashy condo rental, funded by credit cards and overdrawn accounts, fell into default within weeks. The car he loved, a sleek black BMW he flaunted on Instagram, was repossessed. Watching it towed from his driveway was a small but deeply satisfying victory. Custody was where I refused to bend. Emma was my non-negotiable. The judge reviewed Ryan's late-night live streams, his unstable public behavior, and the proof of his infidelity. My attorney pressed hard. Stability was paramount, and I provided it. The ruling came swift and sharp. I received primary custody, with Ryan limited to supervised visitation until he could prove he was fit. His face when the gavel dropped was a portrait of defeat. The fallout rippled through family next. Ryan's father, a man who'd once praised him as the future of the family name, publicly cut ties. He called me privately, voice tight with shame, to apologize for his son's disgrace. "You'll always be Emma's mother," he said. "You'll always have our respect." I didn't need his words, but I took them anyway. Ryan's brother, who had once been his loudest defender, withdrew support completely. "I can't risk my business being tied to his name," he admitted. Even the mistress wasn't spared. After HR's investigation, Maya was terminated from the company. No glowing references, no graceful exit. Her name became synonymous with scandal in our circle, a cautionary tale whispered at networking events. She tried to pivot online, posting vague quotes about toxic women destroying men, but every comment section turned into a battlefield. Eventually, she vanished from social media altogether. Ryan spiraled in isolation. He moved from his condo into a friend's spare room, then into a rental so shabby it shocked people who remembered his gala speeches about luxury and success. He applied for consulting work, but every potential client Googled him first. His name pulled up hashtags, memes, court documents. His fall wasn't just personal. It was systemic, permanent. Through it all, I didn't gloat publicly. I didn't need to. The world already had the story. My silence spoke louder than any rant. The legal documents, the financial seizures, the custody order. They were my weapons now, sharper than any slap or toast. When the final divorce decree arrived, stamped and signed, I sat at my kitchen table and let the weight of it settle. I had my daughter, my house, my financial security. He had nothing but the rubble of his own choices. Ryan once told me, back when we were young, that success was about control, about bending circumstances until they broke your way. He wasn't wrong, but control wasn't his anymore. It was mine. And with every ruling, every signature, every door closing on him, I tightened that control until there was nothing left for him to twist. The divorce papers had been signed, the ink still fresh when Ryan called for the first time in weeks. I almost ignored it. Another desperate plea, another chance for him to twist reality. But something in me wanted the closure, the final chapter. He asked to meet. His voice wasn't commanding anymore. It was thin, frayed, like a man out of moves. We met at a cafe just outside the courthouse, neutral ground. Not glamorous, not private, just plain enough that no one would mistake the purpose. I arrived early, sat near the window, and ordered black coffee I didn't touch. The hum of conversation around me was background noise, a reminder that the world kept moving no matter how loudly two lives collapsed. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. The tailored suits were gone, replaced by a wrinkled button-down, the kind of shirt that looked slept in. His hair was unkempt, his jawline sagging from stress and cheap takeout. He scanned the room nervously, then spotted me. For a moment, I saw flickers of the man I had once believed in. Then I remembered the champagne dripping down his tie at the gala, the smirk on Maya's face as she toasted him, and the pity vanished. He sat down without asking, slumping into the chair across from me. "Sam?" he began, voice low. "I know I've made mistakes." I raised an eyebrow. "Mistakes? That's what you're calling it?" He rubbed his temples. "I don't even know where to start. Everything's gone. The promotion, the house, the car. Maya's gone too." His laugh was bitter, hollow. She couldn't handle the fallout. Turns out she liked me a lot more when I had a title. I sipped my untouched coffee just to give my hands something to do. "So now you want sympathy?" His eyes darted to mine, wet, frantic. "No, I want—" He broke off, struggling. "I want another chance. For us. For Emma. I know I ruined things, but I can be better. We can fix this." I leaned forward, my tone steady. "You think you can glue a shattered glass back together? That's not how it works, Ryan." His voice cracked. "I miss my daughter. I miss waking up in our house. I miss you." That last part almost made me laugh. "You miss the version of me that tolerated you. That woman doesn't exist anymore." He reached across the table, palm open like he expected me to take it. I didn't move. He let his hand drop, shame coloring his face. "I was scared," he said quietly. "Scared of not being enough. You always had it together. The money from your mom, the house, the way people respected you. I felt small. With Maya, I felt powerful. Like I was in control. The honesty, if that's what it was, didn't soften me. It only clarified what I already knew. So you destroyed your family to feed your ego. Congratulations. Did it feel worth it? His shoulders slumped. No. God, no. We sat in silence for a long beat, the clatter of dishes and low chatter around us filling the gap. He looked at me like a drowning man searching for land. Finally, I spoke. Do you know what I see when I look at you now? Not a husband, not even an enemy. Just a man who took everything he was given and burned it to the ground. You're the architect of your own destruction, Ryan, and I won't be your cleanup crew. His face broke. Tears welled, spilling despite his effort to blink them back. He covered his mouth with one hand, shaking his head like if he shook hard enough, reality would rearrange itself. Sam, please, he whispered. Don't leave me like this. I don't know who I am without you. I stood, slow and deliberate. My chair scraped back, heads turning from nearby tables. I didn't care. Then I guess it's time you find out. I slung my bag over my shoulder and left him there, hunched over a chipped cafe table, a ghost of the man who once thought he owned the world. His sobs chased me to the door, but I didn't look back. Outside, the air was brisk, sunlight cutting through the clouds. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't defined by him, by his ambitions, his failures, his betrayals. I was my own story now, and as the cafe door swung shut behind me, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Ryan Collins was no longer my problem. 1 year later, the sound of laughter fills my kitchen the way silence once did. Emma sits at the counter, swinging her legs as she dips strawberries into melted chocolate, her cheeks sticky and pink. She's taller now, bolder, her drawings taped proudly across the fridge. When she tells people about her life, she talks about her new house and mommy's job, never once flinching at the absence of her father's name. That used to break me. Now it feels like healing. The house is mine, fully mine. I repainted the walls, stripped away every color Ryan once insisted on, and filled the rooms with my choices. Light pours through the windows, soft and forgiving, and every corner hums with peace. I've built routines that are ours alone. Sunday pancakes, Saturday hikes, bedtime stories that don't end in rushed goodnight kisses because someone has emails to send. Emma sleeps soundly now. So do I. Career-wise, I've stepped into my own. The savings I once funneled into Ryan's dreams now fuel mine. I launched a small consultancy, building on the networks I'd built in silence while he strutted in boardrooms. Clients came faster than I expected. Many of them women who said they admired how I carried myself through the chaos. I never planned to be anyone's symbol, but in a way, that's what I became. The viral toast line still floats around the internet, stitched into videos, quoted in podcasts. I didn't set out to start a movement, but sometimes the most powerful things are born from survival. And Ryan? He exists, but only in the background noise of gossip. The last I heard, he was renting a dingy apartment outside the city, cycling through contract jobs nobody respected. Maya is long gone, her name mentioned only as a cautionary tale. His father cut him off completely, and his siblings stopped inviting him to family gatherings after too many drunken scenes. Once, I spotted him on a street corner as I drove by. Thinner, older, his eyes darting like he was waiting for someone who'd never arrive. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. People sometimes ask if I regret the marriage, if I'd erase those years if I could. The answer is no. Without them, I wouldn't have Emma. Without them, I wouldn't have discovered the steel inside me I once mistook for fragility. Betrayal may have broken the version of me who believed in fairy tales, but it also built the woman who knows she can stand on her own, unshaken. At night, when Emma is asleep, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine, listening to the quiet hum of the neighborhood. No staged galas, no frantic phone calls, no waiting up for a husband who never comes home. Just me, my daughter, and the steady rhythm of a life reclaimed. I used to think freedom came from being loved right. Now I know it comes from walking away when you're not. Ryan underestimated me. and in doing so, he lost everything. I underestimated myself, and in surviving him, I found everything I needed.